Mike Brown, the former FEMA director.
Joining us here is the former FEMA director.
History, I think, was very unkind to you, my friend. Very unkind.
Mr. Brown, thanks for being with us.
This is Michael Brown Unplugged.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Situation with Michael Brown. I want to talk about Vince Vaughn and cancel culture for a minute. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, like I did when the very first time I heard the term cancel culture, what exactly does this term mean? So let's start out by just going to a couple of sources for a definition of cancel culture. Let's start out with the Urban Dictionary, a great place to start for an urban term, right? They define cancel culture this way: a modern internet phenomenon where a person is ejected from influence or fame by questionable actions. It is caused by a critical mass of people who are quick to judge and slow to question. It is commonly caused by an accusation, whether that accusation has merit or not. It is a direct result of the ignorance of people-caused communication technologies outpacing the growth in available knowledge of a person. That's kind of an awkwardly worded sentence, but I think what the Urban Dictionary is trying to say is that people are ignorant about persons or an individual because in the modern age of social media spreading lies as quickly as they possibly can, that those technologies have outpaced the growth in whatever available knowledge exists about an individual. In other words, you just jump to conclusions because you read something on Twitter or Facebook or any other social media platform about an individual, and so you immediately assume that that's true. It's also called call-out culture, which is a form of public shaming that aims to hold individuals and groups accountable for their actions by calling attention to behavior that is perceived to be problematic, usually on social media. Wikipedia describes cancel culture this way: a variant of the term cancel culture describes a form of boycott in which someone, usually a celebrity, who has shared a questionable or unpopular opinion or has had behavior in their past that is perceived to be either offensive or problematic, called out on social media, is canceled. They are completely boycotted. Isn't it fascinating and simultaneously pathetic and sad that we have a term, cancel culture, that says, well, if you have a questionable opinion or an unpopular opinion, then we're going to boycott you, or we're going to publicly shame you on social media. It's quite frankly disgusting in my opinion. But what does this have to do with Vince Vaughn? Well, Vince Vaughn committed a cardinal sin. Having worked with President Bush and having watched people outside the administration, I'm not talking about people that worked with him, but, people in public forums or at rallies or campaign events or on disasters, I've watched people interact with the president in such a way that it reaffirmed my belief that the president, and in particular Bush did this, they see themselves as the president of all the people, not just those who voted for them. I remember one time, you may have heard me tell this story on radio. The president and I had been in California. I'd been in California for months because of wildfires. And on this particular day, we were in the motorcade driving back to Marine One. And we were in a fairly rural area of California. And as we drove along, of course, the Secret Service and the local police department, local law enforcement, had cordoned off all of the different intersections. And at each of those intersections, people had gathered to watch the motorcade pass by. Now, some gave President Bush the finger. Others waved American flags. Others were just waving. But President Bush, as we were making this, what seemed, in hindsight, I don't remember whether, it seemed to be a long drive. It was probably at least a 30-minute drive from the last photo op that we had done back to the LZ, the landing zone for Marine One. And as we made our way along this motorcade route, the president kept seeing these people at the intersections that had gathered, waving, sometimes, with all fingers and sometimes with just one finger. But nonetheless, President Bush saw these people. And he said to the head of the presidential detail, Eddie, who was riding in the jump seat in the Beast, President Bush kept saying to Eddie, "Hey, let's pull over and let me shake some people's hands." And the Secret Service, Eddie kept telling the president, "No, sir, we can't. We haven't, we've not done anything to secure this, other than securing the route. We haven't done anything to make sure that these people are not a danger to you." And the president kept insisting, as we would go through every intersection, President Bush kept saying to Eddie, "Let's stop, let's stop, let's stop." And finally, Eddie got kind of fed up and turned around and said to the president in pretty stern terms that, "No, sir, we're not going to stop because we can't take that risk. We have not. All we have done is we have cordoned off the intersections so that we can get back to the helicopter, and we have not done anything to clear these people for you to get out of the car and walk up to a crowd that we have nobody there. We're not going to do it." It's the first time I ever saw anybody tell the president no, and he just kind of slinked back down into a seat, and we just continued our conversation. And I often think about that story because I don't know whether anybody would have tried to harm the president or not. That wasn't my job to make that determination. It wasn't my job to do that kind of risk analysis. That was the Secret Service's job. But here was the president basically saying, "I want to get out and I want to shake these people's hands." And I've often thought about that. I've seen the president talk in the third person as people would come into, we might be having an Oval Office meeting, and one time he saw what appeared to be junior high kids pass the Oval Office door, and they were peeking in, and he waved them in. And he spoke about the president in the third person, not in the first person, not I, not me, but the president. And all of those examples stuck with me because if I had the opportunity to shake the hand, I've met, a lot of presidents, but I never met Barack Obama. If I had the opportunity to meet Barack Obama and shake his hand, I would do that. I never thought that it was controversial for any U.S. citizen, for that matter, any citizen of any country, meeting the freaking president of the United States of America. I don't know why that's controversial. But in the era of idiocracy, in the era of Trump derangement syndrome, being friendly with someone that the media and that part of America genuinely abhors, that would like to see dead, would like to see impeached and removed from office and sent off in shackles somewhere. If you're friendly with that individual, in this case Donald Trump, that renders you a target of cancel culture. And in this case, it's Vince Vaughn. Now, I don't know whether you know who Vince Vaughn is, but he's an actor. He's a comedian. I think his movies are pretty good. I find him to be entertaining. He's a well-known libertarian, which is definitely not Republican. Not that it matters, but being libertarian and being a staunch libertarian is not necessarily conservative or Republican. During the college football championship game, Vince Vaughn committed an act of heresy. He shook hands and briefly chatted with the President of the United States of America. And now, all of the internet trolls are pissed off. Here's a small sample. I don't know who these people are. I don't care. I'm simply sharing with you what some of the cancel culture people on Twitter had to say about Vince Vaughn shaking hands with Donald Trump. Somebody by the name of Timothy Burke. I'm very sorry to have to share this video with you. All of it, every part of it. To which someone by the name of Camera Lassie responds, "Well, I'm completely done with Vince Vaughn movies from now on. Vince Vaughn should have spit on his hand, not shaking it. This actually makes me sick to my stomach." To which Pork Chop Cash responds, well, you know, Vince Vaughn has always been a colossal douchebag. Wow. Really? Barbara Mills says, all of you saying calm down, Vaughn is shaking the hand of the man who is hell-bent on destroying not just our democracy, footnote, you know how that pisses me off, but our survival in the world community for his personal benefit. Wake up, people. Donna Zimmerman tweeted, shaking the hand of the man who colluded with foreign leaders against his own country, instituted a law that led to kidnapping and deaths of young children, recklessly brought America near to war and resulted in the death of 176 people shot down in retaliation. Well, you get the idea. This is the cancel culture. These are people who, regardless of who the president is, but in this case because it is Donald Trump, and because Vince Vaughn had the audacity to lean over and to shake the hand of the President of the United States of America and to chat for a few seconds, we now have to cancel Vince Vaughn. Colby Smith, on Tuesday, published a Facebook post. Vince Vaughn faces liberal outrage after he was seen with Trump during national championship game. I've pulled up that post. Bear with me. I want you to hear it. Colby Smith even starts out by saying, this is a long post. And it's titled, The Day I Met Vince Vaughn. When I was in Iraq in 2005, I was stationed in an extremely dangerous area. At the time, the most hostile combat area in the world. We lost a lot of good men, and our base was mortared or shot at almost daily. Leaving the wire was worse in terms of violence. In other words, stepping outside the base was even worse in terms of the violence. He writes, I say all of this because no one stopped at any of the forward operating bases under 108th Armor's control. Now, forward operating base is, the acronym is an FOB. So instead of saying forward operating base, I'm just going to use FOB where he uses FOB. He says, I say all of this because no one stopped at any of the FOBs under the 108th Armor's control. No one. We heard that comedians, actors, actresses, cheerleaders, and musicians were visiting the troops in Baghdad or in Taj or in Talil, but they'd never stopped in Mahmudiyah. I'm not sure I pronounced that right. They would never endanger themselves by visiting the Triangle of Death. He writes, no one except Vince Vaughn. Vince stopped at FOB St. Michael purely because he was told that no one stopped there. He went around our base talking with every soldier. He signed photos, took photos while holding a sign that said, if you can dodge an IED, you can dodge a ball. He even sat and played me, a lowly medic, in NCAA football in our haphazard, poorly constructed smoke shack. He played as Virginia Tech, if I remember, and I played as Texas Tech. He was relaxed, even though we were mortared when he landed, and he had to lay on the helipad. Everyone around him was still standing as we were accustomed to it, but we won't fault him for that. Here's the thing, he writes. We had lost multiple men in the days leading up to his visit, and the constant combat was exhausting. But Vince Vaughn is an entertainer, and he used his skills to enable us, for just a few hours, to forget the horrors of the conflict we were in at great danger to himself. So sure, nobody's behind a keyboard will fault him for shaking the president's hand. Nobody's will say that he needs to be canceled. Hollywood hacks who flew over our base will judge him. But I, for one, know better. I know that he's a hero, and that I will support him in his endeavors as he supported me in mine. Please let others know about what Vince did. He deserves credit, although I know he's asked for no credit. How powerful. In a day and age where you can't even shake the hand of the President of the United States without risking everyone boycotting your movies or saying that you ought to be subjected to cancel culture, we're losing it in this country. we're losing the ability to have different opinions. We're losing the ability to understand that, for example, I hated Barack Obama's policies. I kind of disliked him at times, but I never would have said, I refuse to shake your hand. He was duly elected president of the United States of America. But now, with Trump derangement syndrome, we can't even shake his hand. So I just want to say to Colby Smith, thank you for your Facebook post. And to all of those out there that want to somehow cancel Vince Vaughn, you know what? Based on what you've said about Vince Vaughn, and based on what Colby Smith has written about Vince Vaughn, a story that I never heard about what he did in Iraq, you can damn well be assured that the next time there's a Vince Vaughn movie on TV, I'm going to watch it. The next time Vince Vaughn is in the theaters, I'm going to go. Cancel culture has gotten completely out of control, and I think we should resist it at every opportunity. And again, I want to thank Vince Vaughn and Colby Smith for sharing that story. What an amazing story. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Be sure and drop me a line if you'd like to comment about cancel culture. You can find me on Twitter at Michael Brown USA or on Facebook at Michael D. Brown. If you go to the Facebook page, be sure and join the Situation with Michael Brown group on the Facebook page. You can follow the show, The Situation with Michael Brown. If you haven't already done so, be sure and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it right now. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, I really would appreciate it if you'd leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. The Situation with Michael Brown is written by me and produced by Right Turn Media. Marketing and social media is by Whole Crowd. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.